1995. Hello everybody, this is a video about love. But don't reach for that wedding ring just yet, because this isn't a video about writing notes in class, okay? This is a video about bad love. It also contains pretty big spoilers for one after another, and considering where I go with the topic, there's no way to talk around them, okay? You've been warned. But yeah, I'm talking prison love, okay? I'm talking private sector high-end blackmail love, okay? I'm talking I have a dangerous boyfriend at home, but I'm still gonna meet you in the cafe because I think you're adorable love. I'm talking puritanical, Americanized fetishization laid bare in all its anxious glory. I mean, hopefully I end up touching on all of that. And if I do in a satisfactory way, then you might as well reward me with a free subscription. And if I don't, well, maybe you should still subscribe to see if I get it right next time. Now, where should I start with this? There are several fascinating inflection points that are quite compelling for diving into the subject matter of forbidden love. Should I start with John Smith and Pocahontas, Thomas Jefferson and Sally Hemings, Mildred and Richard Lovin, the miscegenation clause of the Hays Code? The United States of America has a unique set of social hang-ups in regards to the tug-of-war between romance and lust. On one hand, you have you know, the kind of love that's so tame that we teach it to children. Then we get to, like, Jane Austen, I guess, but, like, the bad interpretation of Jane Austen, where you don't understand the book, but you like the pretty dresses. After that is, I don't know, Jay Gatsby. Love starts getting class political, and class politics are taboo in romance, so it's actually like the beginnings of fetish. And then you can throw in Jane Austen again, but you understand the book this time. And then this is a good spot to throw in the non-obscure Shakespeare stuff, because things are getting horny, but they're weirdly enshrined, and people still don't get the story enough to see it every time. Then you can toss your typical Meg Ryan rom-com, take your pick, where the modern brain clearly interprets the taboo and fetish, or when worlds collide romance. Might as well toss in Pygmalion and My Fair Lady around here, I don't know. Then you can throw in the typical modern American musical where unique American-style othering and exoticism begins to interact with the fetish and, you know, young forbidden love. I'm thinking about West Side Story at this moment. And then the power imbalances and fetishizations only get increasingly grotesque because of the unspeakable events of American slavery, and the last stop is Beloved by Toni Morrison, and this is horror now. But let's put the car in reverse. This is too much, because the realm we are going to examine is right around here.
If she knows she can walk if she talks.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, then you better shut her up or I will.
I thought you were a nice girl.
I ain't a nice girl.
To survive on the inside, you've got to live by the rules. Don't let up.
Remember, Angel, I'm here because of you.
You don't need to be in jail right now. We will help you out.
Don't give in.
You better get me out of here, or
Or what? What? Huh? You gonna bust out?
And don't ever fall in love.
Why'd you rat on your friend?
maybe I was trying to impress you.
With trust on the edge.
She's bad news.
And their lives on the line.
I'll take care of it, right? I'll take care of it.
They will follow their passion.
You belong to me, you understand?
To the danger point.
We gotta get out of here.
James Russo, Cinda Williams, Condition Red.
Okay, so this movie is already making things difficult for me to stay on topic because it's about a woman in prison. We still rarely even get storytelling about women in prison because the very idea itself subverts and challenges the patriarchal expectations placed on womanhood. Challenging to the point of being seen as taboo and fetish, and that's why we more commonly see it within its own exploitation subgenre. The idea of women being capable of the kind of violence you don't get away with is mind-boggling, because the idea of violence is so masculinized that when women are depicted as criminals, the socially accepted presentation is the woman who is slender and sneaky and gets away with it. If a woman is burly, they are unjustly required to be Joan of Arc, Brienne of Tarth, not the Hound. Add the expectations and subversions inspired by racial bias and stereotype into the mix, and things get extremely complicated here. Like the protagonist's forbidden love interest in Condition Red is light-skinned, well-spoken, and still tethered to a pimp. This whole thing is an absolute minefield, and you can teach an entire college course on why stories about women in prison are underexplored and overexploited in media. Heck, even important pieces about men in prison struggle to stay in the mainstream gaze. Yeah, like the best modern representation of women in prison I can think of is Anyways, this video is not supposed to be about all that, but it is about forbidden love, so keep what I said in the back of your head as I break down the plot of Condition Red for you. Wait. Before we actually get to the plot, I need you to know that this is a rare movie, okay? This movie is so indie that I could only locate like a viewable version on Dailymotion. I had to purchase a physical copy. Well, I didn't have to. I just kind of bought it anyway. Maybe, I don't know, support physical media, folks. Anyways, Condition Red is about a cop guy. A white cop guy, which is implicitly important to point out because white people get to choose whether that's implicitly important. It's in the White People Bill of Rights, but it's also not in the White People Bill of Rights. See what I mean? See what I did there? Well, you shouldn't. Okay, maybe not a cop, a prison guard, but that's just more sedentary. That's the only difference. So I guess that makes him like a house cop and not a field cop. Was that joke worth it, future me? Was that joke worth it? Yeah, Dan Capelli over here is one of the overseers of the men's side of the prison, and it's shot in a real prison, unlike Joker 2, where the prison is a labyrinth of hell and all the non-speaking people have the implicit characterization of a Cookie Monster creepypasta. No, this is a prison. We don't have a studio budget. We're shooting in the prison. Anyways, the prisoners are having like the woodshop elective because whenever there's a prison in a movie, that's just what prisoners do. They have woodshop electives. They have like outdoor recess. And if you steal someone's basketball on the playground, they stab you for it and then you get sent to timeout. Yeah. American prisons are like weird and bad. It's so infantilizing, but whatever. I wouldn't know. I've never been to I haven't been to prison. I haven't. Uncle Sam's a weirdo. Anyways, there's a fight at recess or whatever, and someone's arm nearly gets sawed off, and our protagonist is like, okay, I gotta get you. And he's like, you're not gonna get me, I'm running. And then he runs into the field, and then he's like, I'm gonna get you. And then he's like, I got you.
Brian Fury wins.
Yeah, he caned that man in broad freaking daylight on a Tuesday. So he gets called into the principal's office for an emergency performance review. And the principal is like, okay, I feel bad because you're a good guy and I love caning the children. It's really funny. But you were way too public with it. Indoor recess just ended. Everyone was watching. I'm legally mandated to punish you. So because you're stupid and you can't control yourself, I'm moving you to the women's prison. And I'm telling you, this is the worst thing that could ever happen to a man ever. Because, like, you know how men are. They're all gossiping about it and they're, like, throwing shade. You have to babysit a bunch of girls. Oh, you are so lucky, bro. If I were assigned to the women's prison, all the things and people I would do. And, you know, the inclusion and presence of the other guards being creepy bozos is actually interesting because, in all honesty, they don't need to be there, but the fact of their presence suggests a vague form of self-awareness that one might not expect from this film, considering literally everything I just said. I mean, Dan is visibly uncomfortable from the way these dudes are talking about his predicament, but what I can't entirely tell is if this discomfort is one of feeling emasculated or one of offense at the comments themselves. It might be a little bit of both, actually, and that in itself is just fascinating, isn't it? Anyways, Dan has his first check-in with Roz from Monsters, Inc. because in every movie where a protagonist is about to break the rules at work, there is a Roz from Monsters, Inc. meeting, and Roz is like, "You are a man, a dumb, stupid little man, and you're here on the women's side of the prison. Please don't be a little stupid man here. We are still dealing with prisoners, okay? And I don't have the time or the energy to deal with stupid little games, but trust me, I will make the time if I have to." Oh, and also, before this meeting, we did, get to go home with Dan. Dan does have a home life, it seems. He doesn't live with his mom, but he visits his mom, and he's still, not married or whatever, but there is a nice local girl he's talking to who's a nice girl, and she's a nice girl, and his mother says that she's into him, and they want to date and stuff. Keep this in mind, she's a nice girl. It will come back.
Hey, Danny. Danny, look what I got for you.
What's this?
Take a look.
Oh, wow, I love these.
Yeah?
Thanks, Rose.
I got the recipe from your ma.
And it is very soon after this meeting that Dan bumps into Goodell, and that relationship is immediately confrontational. She talks back. She teases. He gets a little handsy. She gets a little handsy. Everyone's getting a little too handsy. Her cellmates are like, "You are crazy and dangerous. We see what's happening." She has her little check-ins with Dan, and they get to know each other. Goodell has a talent for the arts and has read a lot of books, and Dan has fallen utterly and completely for this light-skinned chocolate princess. So Homegirl gets her 5-minute phone call, and the phone call is to Angel Delgado, her pimp, who then shows up for visits and gets really threatening. And this immediately ignites the dad rock white savior complex in our main character, Dan here. I can be your hero, baby. And I know what you're thinking. Hey, what about that nice girl who is nice and also a nice girl?
Danny, look what I got for you.
Yeah, that's out the window. She's knocking on the door like, "Danny, Wanny, why are you being so distant? What's changed?" And sorry, homegirl, this copper likes black women. He loves them. Okay, so now homegirl has this white savior right where she wants him. And why am I saying something like that? Because the forbidden romance escalates to a point where Dan is all like, "This is the love of my life. You are the love of my life. Let's run away together and figure it out because this is a love so true." Goodell, a prisoner of the state, is like, "You are so correct. Let's do this. Let's live together. Our love is worth it." Then he breaks her out, and they're on the road. Clean slate, home free, the American escapist dream. Well, except the first thing she does when she gets a moment alone is call her pimp and tell him to come pick her up. And the thing is, she knows she absolutely can call and have this work out for her because she happens to be Angel Delgado's favorite. He's straight up in love with her too, but he is also her pimp. And the rest of the movie, from this point on, is a chase thriller because Dan has already broken not only the law, but his oath as a white man to proper society, so this pimp can totally kill him and get away with it if he's sneaky enough. And there is no budget, so of course you're getting your climax in a good old-fashioned parking structure shootout. And it's the kind of shootout that doesn't end well for most of the folks involved, you know? The disastrous kind, with lots of gunfire. The kind MCU Aubrey Plaza would be proud to see. Yeah, there are a whole lot of problematic American tropes and ideas embedded in the very fabric of this film, if you couldn't tell from the edgy jokes in my summary that basically wrote themselves. But the thing is, I still like this movie. It's one thing to choose an interracial prison romance because she's one of the good ones, but oh no, she has a pimp boyfriend as a plot. Like, that choice in itself is you know? But this film executes the task in a way that, from my perspective, genuinely cares about its characters. You can tell from the actors' performances that the stakes are meant to feel real, and they don't want to joke around about this. Combine the committed performances with the soundtrack and the shooting in actual prison and the energy of Philadelphia, and I don't know. There's an undeniable cool energy this one, contrived plot be damned. But this video is about forbidden romance, so let's talk about it. One of the most interesting things about love, as it's depicted in the traditional patriarchal American context, is that, you know, the settlers were Puritans. So, frankly, any form of love that exists outside of a strict rule set is seen as a crime of passion. At the end of the day, everyone is the teen in the slasher movie, and in Condition Red, the killer is society itself, transforming Dan into a man who would kill because he cannot tell and was never taught the difference between love and fetish, which is, I gotta say it, white male privilege in action. White guys genuinely believe they're entitled to, like, anything in any way they want, and therefore are not even taught and do not recognize the difference between love and lust. Like, of course this prisoner fooled you and used you to escape, Dan. You tried to have your cake and eat it too. Women are taught love and lust, a cautionary tale of the entitled male. Black men are taught love and lust, fall in love with the wrong woman, and you are getting lynched, and or a weird misogynist wives' tale about women poking holes in condoms and doing a pregnancy heist or something, to which, in your head, you respond, what was even going on in the 1980s to make you say that? And yet, we see echoes in the characterization of who? Perfidia Beverly freaking Hills. She's sitting around the campfire, talking about how the Antonio Banderas cat is her weapon against the patriarchy and stuff, and I'm like, this is provocative, to put it mildly. Is she saying that because she means it? Is she saying that to reclaim the narrative over her power-imbalanced fetishization? Whose face is she seeing when she looks at the baby? Whoa, let's stay on topic, back it up. One battle after another is one of those movies that'll threaten to derail this whole video. But I'm just saying, like, the other day I was listening to this podcast about cucking. Okay, let me explain. It's not a podcast about cucking. It's a podcast about a lot of pop cultural things, but like the topic of the day was how cuck has entered the public slang lexicon and its origins in Shakespeare and how it transformed into fetish as one of the more batshit crazy elements of American slavery. You know what they say, the young buck is never the cuck. Now, excuse me while I go deep throat a bar of soap. Do not watch me, that will also become a fetish. Stop. Anyways, this journalist lady was talking to one of the many experts she brought in, and they were talking about how a fetish is often a faux pas connected to one's personal social ideology and sensibility, because the taboo is what makes it attractive, which is why misogynoir goes so foolish and why Republicans love being secretly gay and keep getting caught lusting over trans people, but absolutely do not want sexual and gender fluidity normalized, because in that world it is no longer a fetish. Oh no. Anyways, I say all of this to say that crime, generally speaking, is scandalized, which makes it easier for people who commit crimes to be sexualized. Throw in some unchecked white male entitlement and you wind up with movies like Condition Red, cautionary tales of unbalanced forbidden love. Dan over here is only a lower-ranking version of Lockjaw. They both tried to have their cake and eat it because they both have no sense or idea regarding how to separate the love from the lust. Lockjaw's situation is much more ironic, however, because, much like MAGA, he thinks he's going to be invited to the dance at the Trump ballroom when all they're gonna do is take you to the gas chamber disguised as an office anyway for being an N-word lover. Like, what were you thinking? You will never be part of the club, and you would never have been a part of the club regardless. You listen in MAGA, you are not part of the club. They're literally taking the food out of your children's mouths. Condition Red is an interesting specimen, because it in itself is a work of stereotype, but delivered in an earnest, heartfelt way. Does that make it a dangerous or insidious movie? Maybe. But what I can say is that Condition Red is the kind of movie I imagine plays through the average 90s American's head when they hear about violent incidents on the nightly news. A work of well-meaning, if politically incorrect, imagination. And while I'm not certain I agree with it, I understand why it exists, and as a movie, as a creative work, it still charmed me too. It plainly expresses that the prison guard and prisoner romance is a crime against the social order, and possibly unintentionally does the same with interracial love for no other reason than the casting. Dan had a nice girlfriend who was nice. She was a nice girl, but he broke the social contract and look what happened to him. One Battle After Another is about two Dans of different dispositions, and it very explicitly displays interracial love as breaking the social order, and for Dan 1, it says, look how hard things have become because he broke the social contract, but it's worth it. And for Dan 2, it says, there are no exceptions to the social contract. You break it, you die, and we don't mind changing the rules over slight inconveniences. But what if we change the pay grade and the gendered racial dynamic of the naughty lover social contract breakers? What if they are co-workers and high-end spies working in the private sector? What if it's a consensual crime of privilege and not a power-imbalanced crime of opportunity? Surely it's immune from a judging societal gaze, right?
You're Nelson Crowe, and used to be a secret agent man.
Enter a world of treachery and betrayal.
So what happened with you and the agents?
Temper tantrum.
Temper tantrums are good. Who'd you try and kill?
He's an aggressive, healthy, heterosexual male with a superior IQ of 141. And just a touch of paranoia.
I like a little paranoia. It keeps them careful.
In this company,
we are thriving, I assure you.
Doing whatever needs doing for a price.
Does that give you pause, Mr. Crowe?
it doesn't matter how good you are, only how bad you can be.
Find her, then kill her. If you won't do it, I'll find somebody who will.
She's 36, single, and you call her Snow Queen.
I'll be alone for the weekend at the cabin.
Like me to come along?
So what's our assignment?
Information's on a need-to-know basis.
I like details.
You want them now?
What kind of pitch did she make?
Small risk means small profit. Big risk. Big profit.
You've been busy.
Trust no one.
He's bad. He's awfully bad.
Use anyone.
What about Grimes?
Grimes goes.
Stop at nothing.
What about Crowe?
Simple. We kill him.
When this starts,
Start pulling the trigger.
Ellen Barkin, Lawrence Fishburne.
you and I are forever. I decide when forever ends.
Bad Company.
He is a nasty piece of work.
Isn't he, though?
Okay, so I talked about Bad Company briefly in my erotic thriller video, but this time I think I'm going to dwell on it a little longer, because this movie is cool and interesting and arguably one of the most of its time movies in the sense of like what the imagination conjures up when they generically think of what a rated R 90s movie is. There is so much that can be said about Bad Company's fusion of the 90s idea of eroticism with sensibilities of neo-noir with leftover 80s action movie sprinkles on top. And side note, because I'm mad about this, you know how nowadays the cool, provocative, rated R genre is horror? Well, in 1995, it was, repeat after me, neo-noir. And if you said erotic thriller out loud, you probably know me personally because I'm always talking and whining about the endless sea of erotic thrillers and also complaining about how no one has the media literacy to handle erotic thrillers anymore because Emerald Funnel Cake's work is not thrilling, it is just horny, like everything since Promising Young Woman has been whatever, I'm horny, whatever, and now watching any of her new work is as pointless an exercise as trying to eat a porcelain bowl of caviar with your bare hands while riding a skateboard. Like, why would you put me in this situation? Emerald Fennell, what is your problem? And it's the kind of people who blindly fall for the Emerald Fennell grift who say things like, Maxine was the disappointment of the trilogy, because they sat their butts down expecting glow, expecting glam, because it's the 80s and were instead given a playful homage to the psychosexual, dry-cleaned procedural style of a neo-noir. The kind of thing Seth Rogen claims to miss the most about Hollywood creativity while simultaneously being part of the reason it's dead and too uncool to ever come close to reviving it, buddy. Like, Bad Company belongs in the Criterion Collection. What the heck are we doing over there? Uncultured swine. Okay, back on topic. Bad Company is about the coolest man on the planet with the coolest name on the planet, Nelson Crowe.
He's an aggressive, healthy, heterosexual male with a superior IQ of 141.
He got fired from the CIA because he had a bad temper, and he interviews for this new job at this private firm that blackmails people. But they don't just blackmail anyone, they blackmail powerful people for lots and lots of money because spies are cool and espionage. He arrives at the recommendation of Margaret Wells, also former CIA, and like, she's Nina Williams. She just is. Sorry, I don't make the rules. Anyways, the blackmail business does not operate in the moral black or the moral white or even the gray. It operates in the moral green. This impacts every aspect of narrative choice in the film, and it's why every character looks like they drink wine and actually know how it tastes. So yeah, of course Nelson and Margaret start getting it on, but it's not in any way that seems brutish whatsoever, no. These are sophisticated spies, so they're gonna lounge luxuriously like Cheshire cats and do the naughty passionately in a fancy beach chair at sunset, looking over a pond at the resort. As you can imagine, this relationship is wildly different on a fundamental level from the relationship in Condition Red. There is no power imbalance here. There are no blue-collar escapist woes. These are completely consenting adults. And yet, this movie does kind of the exact same thing with the romance. Sure, the social order plays a less explicit role in characterizing this crime of lust because these characters' occupations kind of make them legally exempt from being punished by any social order. But it still ultimately exists as a crime of passion, even within the world of high-tier corporate espionage they inhabit. The spy stuff is so robotic and cool that the passionate lust still leads to the downfall. It's these love affairs that we keep secret. In fact, the secrets are what keeps the entire business they're in running. Without a crime of passion to be kept secret, there is no opportunity to commit blackmail to begin with. So yeah, long story short, there is a whole lot of double-crossing and doubting going on, and not just between these two, but between everybody. And Homegirl is also doing the hanky-panky with her boss Vic Grimes over here, but Nelson is aware of that, and they both plan to take the boss man out, but are also playing mind games with each other within that because there's no one you can trust in the blackmail business. Okay, the real plot is actually a lot more convoluted than I could reasonably describe, and I don't mean that in a good way. The amount of double-crossing for the sake of double-crossing becomes so frequent that the meaning of the narrative starts eating its tail like an aurora borealis. Is that what they call it? Whatever. But boy, is it executed with fun, flair, and style. That's why I still don't want to give away too much. But what's especially interesting is that just like with Condition Red, it is the romance that leads to the downfall. It's the spicy love that clouds the judgment of the blackmailing spy. It is the spicy love that breaks the usually flawless CIA-trained investigation machine that is Nelson Crowe. Once again, love that isn't Disney pure is characterized as stupidly foolish in the blue-collar world and arrogantly foolish in the white-collar world. Even the interesting twists and turns of Black Bag still ultimately fall within that paradigm. And no, I'm really not going to elaborate on that. The movie is criminally underrated. You should see it. But I think the way Paul Thomas Anderson navigates the American passion paradox in his entire filmography is part of the reason why his work is so beloved. All of his works recognize American passions, lusts, and greeds as sinful and toxic, but in the same breath, natural, pure, and even noble. And it's a uniquely American sensibility to, play with that in the way he does. But the paradox of that contradiction in itself is universal to all of us because humans are creatures of contradiction. Paul Thomas Anderson's work is messy. One battle after another is messy. The mess is necessary because it inspires genuine, interesting discourse, but it's not so messy to the point of callously destroying its own narrative with self-indulgent, idiotically implemented imagery that becomes a complete turn-off to the viewer who doesn't care to engage with the work because it's self-centered to the point where the entire film is not at all entertaining because it is a preachy self-insert that cannot even make sense of itself. Yeah, I really need Ari Aster to get a real therapist or a real job, one of those two. Where was I? Right. American media depicts passion and lust as things that always lead to some kind of trouble. Well, I guess it isn't entirely fair or accurate to say that the human lust impulse making life a little complicated is uniquely American per se. It just seems like the idea of harsh, cosmic societal punishment as a result is how the American flavor of that story tastes. Even American comedies about open relationships like Splitsville still have this omen of cosmic punishment for unjust lust haunting them like a ghost. The characters still feel terrible and go through terrible, really difficult stuff as a result. They just act out in a funny way as a response to it. Well, I guess now you need an example of this kind of social faux pas romance that doesn't have the tragic baggage. And I mean, you can easily go watch any French or Italian film and you'll sense the difference, but you know what? I can keep everything in the same freaking hemisphere with this next example.
How did you ever get together with a guy like Dean?
I got pregnant. Then he went to prison.
What for?
He killed some people.
Okay, so The Michelle Apartments is a movie so freaking indie that I am not even certain it received a proper trailer at all, and if it did, I could not find it. Also, this movie is Canadian. Why do I count it as an American film? Because it showed up at the Hamptons International Film Festival, so get off my back, bro. Anyways, this movie is about a regular man named Alex, and it's very much a fish out of water black comedy of the kind where Alex is the fish that has been moved from a tank of water to a bowl of 3-week-old Nerds gummies. So Alex has a new job assignment, and he's got to move for this job assignment, and when he gets there, all the quality hotels are full because of a convention. So where does he end up? The Michelle Apartments, of course. This is his landlord, Jules. He really likes being unnecessarily hostile in a way that makes you believe he's a serial killer, and because he's the landlord, if he catches you breaking any of the rules, it is pretty much a coin flip of him either threatening to evict you or trying to blackmail you. I'm also like 70% certain you can still get away with breaking rules though, because I'm not sure Jules knows what the rules, are. Oh, and I'm also like 96% certain his relationship with his sister is an incestuous one. They keep getting caught, but they don't seem worried about it. And yeah, this isn't even the main relationship I'm going to talk about, but it does prove my point a little because of how unimportant this incest is treated. Anyways, this job assignment is also weird and unclear, and Alex's boss is constantly micromanaging him in a way that ultimately means nothing of significance, and the reason why I'm describing things in this way is because, remember, this movie is attempting to be a black comedy. Unfortunately, it seems to believe the equivalent of black comedy is not having punchlines, so for the most part it's just a bunch of weird nonsense happening on repeat. You know, things like Alex finding out that the apartment he got is the same apartment some lady recently died in, and everybody keeps bringing it up, and he even experiences multiple hauntings, but it doesn't matter. Most of this movie doesn't matter. I mean, things definitely happen in it for sure. It didn't bore me, but there is so little connective tissue that it didn't really move me either. Which would be fine if the comedy was hitting, but it wasn't hitting. But the element that takes over and emerges to become the main story of this film is the most relevant aspect worth digging into for this video, and that is Alex's discovery that the neighbor who lives above him is a pretty woman named Madeline. The sordid affair begins innocuously enough. Alex is taking his clothes to the laundry room to launder them, and that's when he runs into Madeline, who is also there to do laundry, but she's just wearing that one piece she wears around the house, because, it's whatever. She lives here. Sometimes you don't want to wear the long pants, bro. But Alex over here is scandalized by it because he's a square, and Madeline recognizes that, and she is confident in her status as a, cutie patootie, so the flirtation happens.
It's always so hot in here.
That's probably the heat.
When it's finally Alex's turn to use the dryer, what does he find? Her panties! Oh no!
The what? I said, I guess you're gonna miss the panty raid.
Panty raid?
And all sorts of scandalous ideas get into Alex's head. Did she do this on purpose? I mean, what'll happen if I return it? He knocks on the door, panties in a bag. A man answers, and you can tell he's a force of evil because he is suspiciously dressed like Robbie Rotten, and Lazy Town is also a Canadian production. So, instead of breaking into song, Alex is out here bumbling, like, oh, I'm the neighbor downstairs, and something was left in the dryer. So boyfriend Dean is all like, wow, that's so nice of you to bring it up to me and my girl. We're just about to have dinner. No thanks. If you don't eat dinner with us right now, I will threaten you with violence. So yeah, this is how dinner is going.
Hey, we haven't finished. What about dessert? I bet Maddie has cooked up a big surprise for us. She's full of surprises.
And you're left wondering if Robbie Rotten is like flexing his girlfriend like she's a Ferrari or something, or if he is also flirting with Alex. And I think the best answer to that question is yes. But Dean / Robbie Rotten is also abusive, and he like threatens violence and does violence on homegirl on the regular, and her whole thing is she's a hot mess because she's into the kinky stuff, but never the violence. In fact, I believe the reason why she's even into a square like Alex is because Alex is a normal, above-the-board, non-rule-breaking, suit-wearing man. But yeah, Robbie Rotten eventually connects some dots and shows up with a knife to Alex's throat, but homegirl cracks a vase over his head in time and he falls into the freaking knife, and she's like, yo, we gotta take this body away. And they bag him and are driving to bury Robbie Rotten, but oops, he's still moving. Uh-oh, so homegirl is like, stop the car.
He's alive! He's alive!
So yes, there is conflict with this relationship, and it doesn't work, but is there a social faux pas hanging over everything? Is there an implication that following through with this affair is the one male imperfection that leads to Alex's inevitable folly and or descent into madness? Not really. This movie keeps the conflict interpersonal. There is no great moral reckoning. There is only the chaos of the specific situation. That said, there is one through line that I've noticed in, I think, every main example I've presented, and that is this cinematic sex appeal attributed to women who are capable of violence. In Condition Red, you've got the complex bad girl with good qualities desiring unilateral escape from the pimp boyfriend and the system. In Bad Company, you've got Nina Williams. And in The Michelle Apartments, you've got the complex bad girl with the bad boy boyfriend desiring autonomy. And these aren't necessarily manic pixie dream girls, because they're not manic and don't do pixie-like things all of the time. They just know how to play rough or whatever, and that's what their alleged appeal is. Orange is the New Black definitely demystifies that aspect a whole bunch, which is why I think it's still a cool and important piece of media. But at the end of the day, I do find it quite interesting how timeless the forbidden love story really is. I mean, this is Romeo and Juliet we're talking about. This is Helen of Troy. Every ensemble reality show ever, we're obsessed with the events that happen after someone makes a love that shouldn't exist. And I think the cultural differences and contexts in which these stories are set are just as interesting to witness and dissect. And I said all this to say, well, Isn't it just ironic that the two frontrunners for Best Picture in the year 2025 are One Battle After Another and Hamnet, and one is a story of an interracial lust child, and the other is a story regarding basically pure white baby Shakespeare Jesus? Yeah. Now that I've said it, you are going to not be able to unsee it. This Oscar year is going to be interesting, that's for sure. Here are the movies I've talked about and how they're ranked out of all the American films from 1995 I've seen for this project. If you've made it this far, and by this far I mean the end, I already asked earlier, but you really have no business not subscribing at this point. Like, what are you doing? Man, it's wild where that topic took me. I wonder what the RNG will make me do next.
Condition red, G94. Condition red, G94.